Hi, I am PJ Briggs with the Russ Phillips team. I am the director of ops. I'm here with Russ, and we're here to talk about the market. So, Russ, we're obviously seeing a huge amount of demand right now. So, what has flipped the switch, and where are these people coming from? Are they all Californians?
It'd be tempting to believe that actually, but for that question, I reached out to a local economist friend of mine, and he reports to me that his numbers show that only 4% of the buyer market right now are Californians. Believe it or not, he says 60+% of the buyers in the marketplace right now are Texans moving within Texas, which is actually consistent with something I'll show you here. Check this out.
Yeah.
So here on my screen, this is the IRS tracking where money moves to. So for example, if you filed your taxes in California last year and then you filed this year in Williamson County, they track where you moved from. Now this data is older than what Mark looks at, but you can see here, it's consistent with what he says. The number one place that people move to Williamson County from is Travis County. So directly south, people moving out of Austin and into Georgetown, into Round Rock and so forth. Number two is Houston or Harris County. And then we get into the California counties. So like Santa Clara, that's the Bay Area, then Los Angeles County, and then Dallas County rounds out the top 5 in terms of where people are moving to Williamson County from. Pretty interesting information.
Yeah, very cool. So, where do you think all these people are getting their money from suddenly?
Well, believe it or not, savings as a percentage of disposable personal income went from 7.2% in December of 2019, pre-COVID, to a record high in April of 2020 of 33.7%. So I guess
Wow.
we're all listening to Dave Ramsey. We were home, we couldn't really spend money anyway, couldn't travel. And it's tapered off since then, but Mark reports that it's still showing to be in the teens.
Great.
And actually, going back to the California thing, Mark says that Austin resembles what California used to be, i.e. the land of opportunity. Yeah. We've got tons of talent moving here, and it seems like every few weeks we're getting a new announcement. 2 years ago, it was Apple is adding 5,000 jobs in a new part to their campus. Then Google's expanding, Tesla moved here, Oracle announced in December, and the latest thing we hear is that Samsung is building a $10 billion chip plant. So on the job front, things are looking pretty rosy, and the word is out about Austin. And before that, we even had a shortage to begin with of housing before all that started.
Right, exactly. So what was driving the shortage before things really took off, do you think?
Well, we had more demand than we could supply with new construction and resales, but then COVID really stepped it up. So if you think about it, the supply chain has been heavily disrupted. Not only did we stay at home in April and then go to Home Depot every other day for our do-it-yourself projects and so forth, but lumber has skyrocketed when you scale that out to a national level. And as home building demand has increased, they're struggling to get lumber, but then multiply that out to all kinds of materials. For example, one of our buyer's agents, Ashley, was working with a gentleman that is something of an economist as well. And he told us back in late March, early April, that he actually flew over the port at Seattle and he saw one ship unloading there. So now think about that for a minute. One ship coming in from overseas to unload stuff and kind of nothing going back. So shipping containers are not going back and forth across the ocean. So across the board, the supply chain has been heavily disrupted.
Yeah, that makes sense. So what do you think we should expect for 2021?
We should continue to expect strong demand and limited inventory. These things are not going to level off overnight, honestly.
Yeah. Do you think that's going to create a bubble?
Well, for that question, I'd point back to my friend Mark, the economist who always talks about jobs. Clearly, the job picture here is rosy and will be for some time. And, one thing that we didn't mention before is like when Tesla came, I read somewhere they're also bringing 37 vendors with them locally. So the jobs thing, I think, will keep us out of a bubble. Plus, the loan situation is nothing like it was in 2008. We have much stricter standards. So as prices escalate, we're actually seeing a lot more cash and down payments and sometimes full cash purchases. So with that in mind, it's really hard to say that this is a bubble.
Yeah, that makes sense. So let's talk about what the Russ Phillips team and what we are doing to help our clients right now.
Great question. It's a fair question. Check this out. What we're looking at here is a list of families that we are trying to help find a home and where they're looking and what sort of profile they're looking at. So, and this is just the Russ Phillips team here, right? So scale that out to everywhere. We're having to get very proactive and go find what we call shadow inventory. So for example, we're looking at old, withdrawn, and expired listings. We're reaching out to absentee owners. So maybe it's an investor that couldn't sell his home 3 years ago and he's just rented it ever since. Maybe it's an investor that's ready to cash out and do something else with his money. We're also reaching out to you, our database, asking, hey, who do you know that is looking for a home or lives in a home actually that matches one of our buyer needs, and maybe they're thinking about moving. I have never in my 50 plus years being an Austinite seen a better market for sellers. So if folks are thinking about selling, we need to talk to you.
Yeah. Speaking of sellers, what do you think the best advice is for sellers right now?
Great question. That's really more of a one-to-one conversation because we craft a plan that's individualized based on the seller's goals. But a couple things are, we want to ensure that you get the best price and terms. So it's not just the money, it's also the terms. And maybe you lease back a little while after closing so that you don't have to move until actually the deal is done. Maybe you need a little extra time to get where you're going. Another thing that happens that a lot of people don't realize is when you have such a hot market like this, the odds go way up that the contract will terminate for some reason. It's more of an emotional market. So what's happening is buyers are struggling to get something under contract, and then once they have the seller committed during the inspection period, maybe they get a little more picky, a little more demanding, a little more emotional, or maybe it's just not what they thought because they wrote an offer sight unseen. So what we see is the number of contracts that don't make it to closing in a market like this goes up a lot. So there's things that we can do to foolproof that and give you the greatest odds of not having the disruption and making it from contract to close smoothly. So yeah, I love that. I would invite all of our clients that are thinking about moving, please contact me and let's go through it one by one, our plan, and talk about your goals as well. And we'll do what makes sense for you. So yeah, I love that. Easiest way to do that is to either reply to this email or to better yet, call me or text me on my cell phone. That number is 512-698-7877. So we hope to hear from y'all and hope you're having a great year so far.
Awesome. Thanks so much. And thank you.